Hello, welcome to another Reil review. I'm Bryant.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Tim.
And today we've played Dune Imperium, a deck-building worker placement game by Dire Wolf for 1 to 4 players.
So let's get into it.
That's my stomach. Hopefully it didn't pick up on the mic.
That one might be the most awkward.
Yeah.
I think it's.
But you could cut that part out because it happened after the silence.
And we can edit this.
Yeah. You can put some songs over that. So my first question I usually start with is, when would a game like this come to the table? And this was a really interesting one for me, because this game is, it's kind of a niche sci-fi market. Like, I definitely feel like if I had a friend who was into Dune, 100% this is going to be the first game you're going to pull out. Obviously.
Yeah.
Otherwise, when it would come to the table, I would feel like if I were in the mood for a deck builder worker, it's probably up there near the top of deck builder worker placement games. I don't know that many that play like
Combine this.
Yeah, I don't know too many games that combine the two. So I feel like if I had a hankering for both, that's when it would come out. But I kind of feel like I would be pulling this out with a gamer night. Like this is not a game I'd be pulling out probably like with my family or like non-gamer friends.
Sure.
This would be a gamer group game for me.
Yeah, that actually leads into my thoughts on it. Is this game has deck building elements. It has worker placement elements. It merges them together actually quite well, I think. So this game is actually very easy to pull out with players who have played deck building and worker placement on their own before. This game can hit the table very easily for those guys. It's pretty quick to set up. Pretty simple once you understand the iconography. There's a couple of weirder cards out there that have a little bit more text, a little bit more like specialty to them we came up in our gameplay. But other than that, like I would say like it's kind of a medium weight game. I wouldn't call it heavy. I wouldn't call it light. But if you know worker placement and deck building, you'll pick up this game pretty quick.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about like what niche is it? And I feel like if I went to a board game dealership, that they'd be like, oh yeah, like you're right in the market for this amphibious RV, you know, the best in its class. Like it does feel a little bit specific, but I think it hits its stride really well. Like it plays quickly. I don't feel like I'm waiting a long time. There is I think all of us in the game had a little bit of analysis paralysis, like what can I do? What's the option?
Mostly because of inexperience.
But yeah, and it's the same thing with the rules. I think that this game has like a clear iconography. I think it's actually relatively easy to pick up. There were a few rules hiccups and it comes with maybe not having played the game enough times and seen some interactions.
But they're really specific.
But they're quite specific.
There's a couple of cards when the first time you see that card, you're not really gonna understand it.
Yeah.
I think Bryant, you had one.
I had a couple. I think. Yeah.
It was like what was it called?
The Freeman Bond.
Yeah, the Freeman Bond. We had to look up. It's like a specific note on one of the cards.
Yeah.
Wasn't fully clear, but it's a real quick like you look it up once and now you remember it.
Yeah, exactly. If that interaction came up again, it would be really straightforward.
Yeah.
No, I mean I really like the Dune thematic. It's a very I think it would come out for any time people want sort of like a decent length, decent weight. It's for in terms of weight, I feel it's right in the middle of like the medium class game.
Yeah.
Like it's absolutely right in the center.
It clips along pretty quick. If you think about it, like you're only really taking like 30 actions in the game.
Yeah. Something
like that. So really like it's not, you know, any more or less than other words.
And it's a built-in clock, so you know like
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
and I'm sure like if you really wanted to and you wanted to play it for a shorter game, you probably could massage that.
You could probably just take this down to 5 cards.
Exactly. Or you know, games done at 7 points or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. 7-point game and instead we're gonna have 7 conflict cards. We'll take out a couple of level 2s and a level 3 or something.
I don't feel like we played it for
normal game went fairly quickly for me. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so next question is talking about the theme and immersion of this game. I think that's very important with a game like this when you're taking an intellectual property. You kind of want to make sure you kind of feel some of that flavor. My only complaint here is I was playing Baron Harkonnen and I didn't get to pull out any heart plugs.
That's the only complaint.
That's my only complaint on the thing. I think that I'm not familiar enough with Dune as, like, I've seen the Sting movie from the 80s, like, years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm not super familiar. I haven't read the books or anything.
Definitely missing a huge opportunity to have Sting as Fade Rotha.
Yeah.
or like maybe a little Patrick Stewart action on these cards. Some real classic classic 80s
Yeah,
Dune.
but and there might have been some licensing issues, I guess, supposing probably using that movie, but
Maybe. Yeah.
but yeah, I only missed the heart plug thing.
Okay. For me, I know nothing of the Dune universe. I'm completely out of the Dune universe, and I would actually say that the fact that this is skinned with the Dune universe is actually a deterrent for me, and it's probably one of the reasons why I didn't try it.
Yeah.
Because I had heard about a couple of Dune games coming out, and I'm like, well, this really doesn't apply to like my tastes or anything.
Yeah.
It's a universe I don't know anything about. It has a lot of a lot of the characters from the universe are in the game, which is great if you know those characters, but I know nothing about any of them, so when I see Lady Jessica come out, I'm like, okay, well, this is a card that lets me draw 2 cards, right? So because I don't know the IP, it pulls me out of the theme a little bit. That said, the fact that they do have influence tracks with the nations, I think that plays well, and you do feel like, yeah, the more I go visit these guys, the higher up on that influence track, that makes thematic sense to me. There's conflict over the planet. Now, I thought my vague understanding was that they were fighting over spice.
Yes.
It felt to me like there should have been maybe more of spice reward as you do the conflict, but in this it just feels like you're fighting for victory points instead. I think there's a different Dune game that actually does fight for spice, if you will. But anyway, as far as like theme goes, have they integrated the theme well into elements? I think it's decently well integrated. Does the theme hit for me? No, because I don't know anything about the IP.
Yeah.
That's where I sit.
And I guess that's always the risk with an IP game.
Exactly.
You're trying to hit that niche market.
Yeah.
Fans of Dune who are fans of board games will play this.
Myself, I'm not. I'm usually like averse. I'm the other way. Like if I see like an IP, I usually don't like a licensed product. It almost to me speaks like as a mark of like inferior quality. That like, oh, we've taken some design and we've just slapped a popular IP onto it, and that's what we're trying to sell. So I often find myself like, moving away from that and then trying to find a really well made game with any other kind of theme. Now, that being said, I think this is a very well designed game. I think that in my opinion, I think it integrates the theme very poorly. This could be anything. Like there's nothing about this that speaks like this is Dune. This could be Hot Dog Maker. And we could be guys at the hot dog factory, and you go here and like this is how many buns that you can commit into the hot dog.
Which actually that could be licensable.
Yeah, totally.
Hot dog game.
Yeah, hot dog
my
game.
my takeaway on that point though is that I've always like kind of disliked that argument about like, is this a thematic game? Well, no, because you can put any theme on it. Because I think if you're talented enough and creative enough, you can put any theme on any game. But you can figure out a way to do it. And just because a game is reskinnable doesn't, in my opinion, mean that it is poor in theme. And that's my personal opinion. So I look more for like, is it integrated into the elements, yes or no?
So, as someone who's like, I'm a bit more familiar with the Dune universe. Yeah. When I think about this, there is one kind of there's one thing from Dune, like reading it as a kid and going back to it, that like to me is like super thematic, and that's a sandworm, and it doesn't.
Oh yeah, we never got murdered by sandworms.
We never got murdered by sandworms.
Hang on. I had Worm Riders.
Yeah, Worm Riders.
Card?
There is a big like the spice must flow.
They didn't eat anyone though.
But there's no risk. Like we can be out on the planet. Like there's like that's a.
It'd almost be cool if there was like.
If there was a word like these got taken over on different areas.
Exactly. Like especially from a worker placement standpoint, it's almost like could it be interesting if like the sandworm comes and blocks off a bunch of spaces.
It's like you have to place all of your workers and you have to roll a dice to see like which worker placement actions are destroyed by a sandworm.
Or maybe you go to a place where the sandworm is, you can collect extra spice, but there's a risk that you can lose a worker action.
They did try to integrate that a little bit, I think, with the maker phase.
Exactly.
Because the sandworms are the ones that produce the spice that the people like.
And actually that makes sense because it's the machines that attract, in the movie at least, it's the machines that attract the worms.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would make sense even.
So there's a few things that I think that it doesn't like quite hit, but there is a fun element. There's a little bit of a take that mechanic. There's it does kind of play off of like the houses, and I do like that the characters that they've introduced things from like the broader like Landsrad, like the other houses in Dune.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Like,
it's not just like the main focus of Dune, it's the world of Dune.
So it's a little bit broader. So in that it does hold its stride. But like as someone who doesn't really love like a licensed property of most things. I think it's I love Dune the book. Like,
that point is actually why I was saying before that the fact that this is a Dune game is a little bit of a deterrent for me because I am used to some licensed products not being as well made, and so now it's is this product actually well made, and it's an IP
Yeah.
I don't even know. So yeah, had you not said, hey, I want to play this game with you, I probably wouldn't have played it, and I probably would have been fine.
And I think it's tricky too because there's like it's not the only Dune licensed game that's on the market. So I think there's even
it gets a little confusing.
So if you even go to like say like Board Game Geek and you like look it up, it would be super easy to confuse like this for this other one and this for this other. So you see like I think there's like 4 or 5 even games on the market and they'll have various scores. So
they're very different games.
Totally different, like radically different like styles of games too, right? Like I think one of them
absolutely.
is a social deduction game. So I think it'd be really easy to hear about it and be like, oh yeah, like I heard my friend really likes this Dune game. You know,
dive into the really wrong area control game
exactly.
and be like, this isn't worker placement at all.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, what's our next question?
Okay, so our next question, we're talking about the components. So quality of the components and the art, like how it looks.
Okay.
And for me, it's serviceable. Like it's good. Like I wouldn't say it's poor quality. The art's all serviceable. It doesn't blow me away if I'm being honest either. It does its job.
Okay.
So that's kind of where I stand on it.
I mean, I think the components are good quality. I think the cards are easy enough to read. I think the artwork is really good. I think the general look of the board is, in my opinion, functional and actually looks clean.
Yeah.
Right. I actually like the components of this game. I think it's not a deluxeified game. I wouldn't call it that.
And maybe that's because I'm used to playing with his fancy Kickstarters.
But as far as like a retail version, this is the retail version.
The retail version.
I think the components are great for a retail version.
Yeah.
It's nice wooden components for all the things. The meeples have a little bit of shape to them, right? The resource tokens that we're using are nice and big. They have some weight to them. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with these things. I could see a deluxe version changing these resources out to maybe some resin resources or something like that. Maybe having like specific looking characters or something like that. But you don't need it. This is good for a worker placement game. And like I said, the card art is great. It's I like it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of whenever you're using wooden components as opposed to like little punch out chits or even plastic components. I like just the wood feels good. I like one thing about like the art and the production is I'm a really big fan of the overall color scheme. The from the art direction side, I find that the colors that are on the characters and the tone that looks clean. The other thing I really like is that like the various factions on the board have a color and it's kind of matched also with like what's on the card. So it's a nice easy visual reference that like this card probably lets you go into those spaces if you want to send your agent there.
Yeah, they play off of those factions.
Exactly. So And I'm not colorblind, so that might be an issue. If someone is playing colorblind, that might not be a benefit. It might even be a hindrance, depending on what your vision is like. But I quite like the color scheme.
On the colorblind points, everything has a different symbol.
Yeah.
So your green spaces also have
the shapes and everything.
Them, right? And then your yellow spaces have the triangle kind of thing. So it's clear enough with the different shapes that you can.
Yeah, I think nowadays most game makers are pretty in tune.
It's almost like default. And it was easy for me because like I was looking over at my opponents and trying to see like, okay, would they have the resource for that? And it was really easy for me to just have a quick peek over at Bryant's stuff and say like, oh, he's got 2 waters, he's got X Solar. That was very, very simple that way. So
the component colors are very distinct.
Yeah.
The player colors actually, I would say, are muted.
Yeah.
And I like that in this game because
it works with this theme. It's
supposed to integrate with that theme of like the sandy planet and the war and the conflict.
A little dusty almost.
Yeah, they're a little dusty. This yellow is not a bright yellow anymore. He's seen the mud.
Yeah, it is almost like a muddy blue even. Now, the one thing I would add to that is that Direwolf, the producer, does have like an upgraded component available through their store.
Okay.
And they have the little cubes are replaced by little and I don't know if it's wood or plastic. I think it's plastic, like a little standing soldier, and then these tiles that represent your alliance get replaced with like a mini.
Oh, cool.
Paint, which is cool.
Yeah, those are cool because these do fall a little bit flat.
Yeah.
They're just chits that come out, and it's like, oh, you're now the ally of these guys.
Yeah.
And if that is a miniature, that actually stands out better. Like you were saying, when you look to your opponents, you can say, oh yeah, he's got that,
and that
I can steal it from him.
Might even speak a little bit more to the thematic because I know, for example, that the deluxeified like first player is like a little mini sandworm, and yeah, if that was painted and looking cool, that would
It's cool.
That would hit a little bit more for me for the theme. I
Okay.
want to be the soundworm guy.
Cool.
Yep, so would I, for sure. So the next question is talking about mechanics, so actual gameplay. Are there any elements of the game that stood out to you? And Matt, you kind of mentioned this earlier about the integration, how well they integrated the deck building with the worker placement. So I thought those mechanics fit together really, really well. So I think that's really important, so it didn't feel clunky. So they're mixing, it's a hybrid of two different styles that mix together smoothly, which was very nice.
Yeah, I think that's a good take. Right on board. That's probably my favorite part of the mechanics of this game is the way that the deck building and the worker placement do mesh together. Depending on what cards you have in your deck, you can do different worker placement actions, or you can hold them for your buy round, essentially. And the cards that you really have this struggle every round of what cards am I going to play, what cards am I going to hold, because either I need to buy a good card or I really need to do these stronger worker placement actions, which are in different locations, so I have to play specific cards in order to get there, right? Works well together. But my one negative, and I'm going to have this negative, for every game that we play that has this, is this big old deck of cards. These all seem like they're pretty unique. There's no like real duplicates to it. This is a big deck. So if you're looking for specific combos, it's going to be very hard to find. There's not a lot of ways to get through these. We have finished a full game. These are the cards we didn't see, which is much more than what we did see. Okay? So I'm not the biggest fan of that mechanic. It hits in Terraforming Mars as well. It hits in Arc Nova. It's the same kind of thing. There are different things that different games have done to let you look through that deck more. This game doesn't feel like it has that, so I could see you getting a little bit shafted by not getting the right cards out. That said, I don't think it's that big of a deal to this one because of the way that it integrates the cards with.
And the only issue I had, like the only card that I had to worry about kicking off went with those, which you can always buy anyway, right?
True, yeah. But so for my cards, I was mostly looking at the Bene Gesserit faction, and so I have to get lucky to have those cards come up. Thankfully, I did, and maybe that was the reason that I ended up, where I placed my scores, right? Is because I could actually kind of chain off of those, and the other factions weren't coming up, which maybe you guys were trying for.
Yeah. I definitely felt like I didn't have a focused enough strategy. I was kind of all over the place, all over the board. I really like the mechanics a lot. I like there's this tension of taking good spaces, trying to get extra work replacements, but also making your deck better. And you kind of have to there's a lot of interchange and balance between those. You really have to spend like maybe an entire round not focusing on combat, not focusing on getting your influence up in these factions, but just improving your deck, making your deck better. I think that it was a great strategy for you. I think that's very critical in this game. I really feel with this game, and one of the reasons that I'm drawn to it is I feel like there's probably a very high skill ceiling in this game. I think that it's a game that relatively easy to learn, especially for a medium weight game. I feel like if I was to play against experienced people, they would absolutely dome me. I would just get rinsed every single time. So I think that there's like a genuine mastery to this, and that's good because there is an element of variance that we talked about with the deck. You're going to see that variance, but I really do think that there is an expertise to be gained from this game, and I think that presents like the kind of like puzzle and challenge I really get out of games, and really that's when I play a board game. That's what I'm looking for more than anything else is to feel that like the puzzle sensation. It could be that
this didn't hit me as hard in this game as it did in other games because you're really only shuffling your deck. Like maybe 7 times. Like, and I was drawing a lot of cards, but like if you think about it, like you start with a 10 card deck. There's only 10 rounds in the game. At most, and you draw 5 cards a turn. So if you do no deck manipulation card draw, like you're literally shuffling your deck 5 times because you have 2 different hands, and actually less because you're going to add cards into your deck, right? So maybe that's like, so it's not so much that like you need to find specific cards that'll work together. It's really you're looking at, okay, what's the best out of these 5 cards because I should get one of those. So maybe it doesn't hit as hard in this game as it would in others. Anyway.
No, it's okay. So my last category is just any final thoughts, which I do have one. So one thing I would like to, because I was talking before, there's a tiny bit of asymmetry in this game where each of the characters that we're playing have their own kind of special powers, but that's kind of the extent of the asymmetry. I really like asymmetry in games, and I think that can be extended pretty easily. So if you've played something like Mage Knight, each of the characters actually has a different starter deck, which kind of plays towards their their built-in abilities and stuff. So I think that could be a cool feature of this game, where you actually have unique starter decks.
I think that would be a neat feature for an expansion.
Yeah, or you can maybe an expansion or something.
I think in typical deck building games, you kind of want everybody to start on the same page and then diversify their own deck, right? Because depending on what cards you pick up, your deck becomes completely asymmetric afterwards, right?
Right.
And you have this little asymmetric power to kind of get you started, and then you really choose the flow of your own deck. And I appreciate that as like the base game of this. Though I will say, as an expansion, that is an absolutely
Well, because I
idea.
love the Mage Knight play decks. Yeah.
Sure. And that's basically my main point of it is as an expansion, I think that's a really great idea. I think I would leave the base decks as the base
As they
decks.
are.
Yeah. Just for me personally. As far as like the game goes, it's a fun game. Yeah. I think give it a try. It's worth a play.
Yeah, I think my only my negative is after a couple of plays, it does feel to me that some of these characters are just stronger than others. Like some of their abilities just feel much better than others.
This guy felt super strong. I'm going to be honest.
Talking to another friend of mine who's a big fan of the game, the general consensus does seem to be that the Baron is kind of S tier. That it's distinctly better than others.
I felt that mine was actually almost as good, if not better.
I also felt that yours was.
Yeah, you might have just been using it better.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Because like for my character, just for the review video, my agents weren't blocked by my opponent's agents in any of the green or blue spaces, and I think in a worker placement game, that's really, really powerful as a passive ability.
I actually think that your other ability, like your Signet Ring ability, is what's the real hallmark of that.
And the Signet Ring basically let me choose my card first.
Yes.
Every round, because I can just, as I play my Signet Ring, I pull one of the cards off the stack, and the actual thing that I noticed about it is that because I get to buy it for one less, it means that using my Signet Ring to move somewhere isn't the detriment of losing the buying power off the
exactly. It offsets that. And there were many points in the game for me where I was exactly one off from buying the card that I really wanted to get. Like I was often at 5 when I needed a 6, or at 8 when I wanted to get to 9.
I was typically 1 or 2 over. So I was actually like, I was in a place where like I never really benefited from the -1 cost. I think maybe one round, and maybe that was the first card, and that's why. So.
But but you know, it speaks to the strength of the game, because for me, I come to the end of it, I got absolutely washed, and I want to play again, like right now.
The hallmark of a great game. You can lose and have fun.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go. Okay.
All right.
You good?
Well, thank you very much for joining us. This has been another Reil review, and we'll see you next time.
That was a good game.
Yeah, it was fun.
I'm glad you brought that over. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the combination of elements.
Yeah,
I would
did a
play
really good
this
job
one
integrating
again
it.
before I would play Arc Nova again. I like this one more than Arc Nova.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
For me,
I did like building the little zoo thing, though.
It's a nice tactile feel.
To me, like Arc Nova, I love because it's just there's something to be said about any game where you just like the game